it's Joe Parteville. This is the Forbes Books Podcast, and there's this old line that doctors are lousy business people. And it could be because they spend well over a decade studying and training to get the doctor part right. They're not exactly spending a lot of time taking MBA classes or reading Good to Great. But now it's more difficult than ever to make it in medicine. And that's even way before the whole pandemic thing. The most successful doctors today were either born with entrepreneurial DNA or developed it over time. And today I'm joined by Dr. Ryan Neinstein, a board-certified plastic surgeon who is thriving in the ultra-competitive world of plastic surgery. Oh, and did I mention he's doing it in New York City? Doc, how you doing today?
I am fantastic. If I was any better, it'd be criminal.
Oh, you know what's so funny? Doctors seem to have jokes like that. And just so you know, I have a doctor friend out in Arizona. When I say, how's he doing? He goes, if I was any better, I'd be a twin. So I don't know if they teach this in medical school to like have these clever repartees with folks. Is that one of the classes they teach there?
Yeah, that's the introductory class.
Okay.
Is how to, is comedy, which is, essential when you're doing something intense and serious. Having a little bit of humor helps break the room and makes everyone a little more comfortable. So it is important. It is essential.
And I know something they don't teach is entrepreneurship and business classes in medical school, which to me is shocking. And I've asked many a doctor about this, and they basically say there's just no time for it. But the funny thing is you see these doctors like yourself spending a fortune to go to college and medical school, and then all of a sudden you walk out of med school and you're like, okay, go be a doctor. Go balance the books, get clients. How tough a transition was that for you? Because I know for many doctors, it comes in every different shape or forms. If they're part of a family practice, they kind of just pick up the mantle. What was your journey like from out of medical school to becoming sort of, what I like to say, especially folks in plastics, it's a very entrepreneurial type medicine. What was your journey like?
For sure. So I do think entrepreneurs, regardless of what your wares are, regardless of what your service is, you're kind of either have that DNA woven into you or you don't. And if you have that DNA woven into you, I don't think the obstacles matter and I don't think the hardship matters. And as you've probably met or spoken to all the other entrepreneurs, we are these crazy people that actually thrive in chaos, that thrive in the hardship. We like, failures, we learn from it and we move on. So was it hard? Of course it was, but that makes it so much more fulfilling. And I get a lot of young people, young surgeons or surgeons from around the world coming to visit me. And they always have that same question is how do you start? And, while there's no secret formula, the one thing I can tell you is, number one, you have to have the drive. You have to be willing to do it. And that's the same, whether you're starting a shoe company or you're starting a restaurant. Number two, and this is my secret sauce, you can't go a straight line in life without a ruler. Find a mentor and find a mentor that you trust that is a seasoned veteran in business, regardless of the business. And you hold on to that mentor like you're holding on to your life and you listen.
And so, Ryan, who was that for you coming out of med school? Because you're doing plastics right now in New York City, which is, I can only imagine, pretty competitive.
Yeah, a lot of people, would be scared to go into the hornet's nest. But for me, I'm drawn to the fire. I like to do the hard things because they are hard. But when I came out, I went to work for a good friend of mine, who's still friends to this day, Dr. Bobby Buka, who had built up a practice. And I was working for him and I kind of learned for a few years, got a sense of the environment, a sense of what a business looks like. And then I jumped in and just opened my own practice without really knowing anything. And then the person that totally changed my life, besides my wife, my son, and my daughter that's coming in a few weeks,
of course,
is David Edelman, who we were introduced through mutual friends. And he is a businessman that crosses real estate, sports, finance, and he has been grinding for years and years and years. And he took me under his wings. And it has been, I believe, a mutually beneficial relationship that I hold near and dear to my heart. I have someone who I can bounce any question off. And I have someone who, one thing he always tells me is, you need to make new mistakes. You need to, you should be learning from my mistakes. You should be making new mistakes. If you're not, listening to me, like I've made all these mistakes, learn from it and make your own mistakes. So I do learn from them and I do make my own mistakes. So when I become a mentor to someone, they will have even more, of a runway ahead of them.
It sounds like without those two mentors you rattled off, it doesn't sound like you would be where you are without those gentlemen.
Yeah, listen, I really believe that. Like, obviously you got to have, the chutzpah, as my grandmother would say, and you got to have the drive. But, a plane, can't land unless, there's the air traffic controls. So you need someone who's going to hold you accountable, someone who is not trying to pat you on the back all the time, who's going to call you out when you make a mistake, who's going to call you out when, if your moral compass is deviating away from what's, virtuous, and is going to hold you accountable. And one of the biggest things that I've learned is that you have to hold yourself accountable. You can't let the world hold you accountable. You have to hold yourself accountable on a daily basis.
And I'm curious, we kind of jumped ahead. Why plastic surgery for you? Was that something were you a one-track mind kind of guy? Because I know a lot of folks who go to med school, they'll go in for one vertical and then end up somewhere else. Was plastics always in your future?
Medicine to me was that perfect combination of science and impacting others, providing service. When I went into medical school, I had no idea what I was going to do on the other side. I didn't even really know what was on the other side. I got in very young. I think I was 19 when I got into medical school. I was just excellent in
19.
Science.
Did you go to college?
I did go to college, but I was in Canada and I got into medical school very young.
Okay.
I was able to do the tests and get through that. That was not difficult to me. But when I got into medicine, surgery and the immediacy of the impact you can make on others made a lot of sense. Take all this knowledge, take all this technology, which is cool, use your hands, fix a problem, and move on. One of the things that led me to plastic surgery at the beginning was hand surgery, reconstructive surgery, and just how nimble the plastic surgeons were to solve any problem. And what has led me to the aesthetic surgery world is, we're really, every other specialty, the goal is to make you back to normal. Something's broken, something's diseased, something's infected, bring you back to normal. We're the only specialty where people come in, normal, and they're having elective surgery and they want to go to a higher level. And to me, that is an absolute challenge and responsibility that just drives me on a daily basis.
What year did you finally make the decision to go full-time for plastics? I'm trying to get a timeline in my brain.
So I finished in 2012. I worked for someone for a few years, and I have been I started off, me and my office manager, Bella, who's still with me today, about 7 years ago. And, she's A1 since day one. And we have built, from renting in a dentist office, literally a dental chair in a dentist office, into having the biggest office in Manhattan, overlooking Central Park, and on top of Bergdorf Goodman. And we just keep growing. And I have to be honest, this is a little embarrassing. When I signed this lease, I'd never even been to Bergdorf Goodman's. I didn't even know what it was.
That's funny. Well, I guess you probably don't have any Bergdorf Goodmans in Canada, so I understand why you wouldn't know about that. And I was meaning to ask you about your office there, which for folks who are listening who are not familiar, Bergdorf Goodman is almost like this unreal shopping experience where it's like it's really made for one percenters. In all honesty, right, Dr. Ryan? It's basically like folks who are very, very wealthy, and you just happen to have an office located above it. Without being too transparent, that's got to be expensive to lease that property there.
Well, you know what, that's such a great question, but let me shed some light on what made me fall in love with this. And it's not just the views of Central Park, which obviously anyone who's ever been to New York knows is inspirational. But if you look at the history of Bergdorf Goodman, these are Holocaust survivors, and I come from grandparents of Holocaust survivors who came with nothing and, built a business from scratch. And, I'm, as a grandchild of a Holocaust survivor, I feel a connection to that. And I'm happy to be in the same location where my grandparents' elk, did what they did. And that's motivating to me. What happens inside, that's almost irrelevant. Like, I'm here to do my thing.
That's pretty cool. All right, so now hopefully my wife's not listening to this, but she got Botox for the first time pretty recently, and so just don't tell her I told you that. But I have noticed that over the course of my life, the world of plastic surgery, Botox, it's shifted into a place where, not that, I hate to use the word acceptable, but like, I remember Ryan, you might be too young to remember this. There was a time where people frowned upon plastic surgery. Now it's relative. Again, I hate to use the word acceptable because it's not appropriate but you know what I'm saying, right? Like there was a time where people made fun of people at plastic surgery, and now it's very normalized.
Well, when anything new comes out, you're always going to have, most people have contempt for change. So in the 60s and 70s, aesthetic surgery was looked down upon within the medical and surgical world itself. And with time, just like most things, now the top people in each and every field are involved in aesthetic surgery. Why? Well, there's a real mind-body connection, and the way people look and feel matters. And the ideal people that we operate on, and we make a big stink about this in my office, is we want people who take care of themselves. We want people who eat well, who exercise, who are also happy and fulfilled, and are looking for aesthetic surgery, not to solve a problem or fill a gap in their life, but to augment or enhance their wellness, to help something that they can't change with diet, that they can't change with exercise, or their changes from pregnancy are genetically given. And those are the type of people that we operate on, and we can make immense changes in their sense of self and well-being. There's going to be outliers in every field. There's going to be people in whatever you do who do crazy things. Are there people who do crazy surgeries and make people look weird? For sure. But that's just not what we do here.
And one of the dark side of aesthetic surgery too is when you see these cases of folks going a little too far. Back in the early 90s, there was the famous case of Jocelyn Wildenstein, who was nicknamed the Cat Lady by the New York tabloids because she got way too much surgery. I'm wondering, when you see people like that who've gone too far or are about to go too far, as a surgeon, how hard is it to toe that line of like, does this person really need it for themselves, or is it more, or there's something deeper in there? Because I feel like in your line of work, there is more of a therapist angle than most doctors, correct?
Correct. And, like most things in life, you need to be strict with yourself and tolerant of others. So, we don't give contempt to people who are looking to do things that might seem out of the ordinary. And you have to hold yourself as the surgeon. You're the arbiter of your life. You're the arbiter of the aesthetic that you're willing to provide. Each and every patient is your business card. Okay, so some people like vanilla ice cream, some people like strawberry ice cream.
Right.
So the argument here is you're going to have very good surgeons who say, listen, this is the way I make people, and the patients like it. So who are you to say that it is unacceptable or too far? And I understand and accept that argument. Me, personally, within my practice, we believe in natural, elegant beauty. People should not be able to tell, as much as you want to let them, that you've had surgery with us. That's how we do it. That is, the compass that I set in myself in this practice. But I don't scrutinize others for their belief.
And do you, deep down, when you see stories that, they always grab the headlines, like this celebrity wanted to look like Brad Pitt, or this celebrity wanted to look like Selena Gomez. Does deep down, you're like, oh God, why are people doing this? Why are doctors putting themselves in this situation and giving the rest of us sort of a bad name?
Well, I actually don't think it gives a bad name. I think that the more media attention, the more insight people get, and sophisticated, educated people, if they see a weird headline, are going to do their own research, and they're going to be drawn to someone who has the similar energy, has the same type of aesthetic that they're looking for. So that may draw more people actually to your practice, especially since I have such an opposing aesthetic and opposing view than those people. It may actually make my practice more easily found for other people. But I do think that there are people, especially in the media world, who they make their living looking different, standing out, being that oddball, that awkward person. That is what they do for a living. Now, if you are an accountant on 52nd Street in Manhattan, you may not want to look like a cat. But if you are a Broadway actor who's a cat, and maybe you want to look like a cat, who am I to say? So again, those aren't surgeries I would ever do, but I do think that there are there are people in this world whose living is made off that, and they need to and want to look weird, and they live in a world where that makes sense to them.
We joked about earlier about what it's like being a plastic surgeon in New York, and I can only imagine, it's just second to Los Angeles in terms of the amount of folks that are interested in getting some sort of aesthetic surgery. Can you talk to me about what it's like in terms of the competition? Because, again, I can only imagine how tough it is.
Well, I actually think it's the greatest city in the world for every number of reasons, and I think it's the greatest city in the world to do business with. You are surrounded by the most interesting, educated, sophisticated, or entertaining people on the planet. So when it comes to competition, it actually works out well for me because, I believe that, you have to have contempt for conformity and you need to have an authentic path. And what makes sense to me was to do something and be really good at it and stand out. So having the density of New York City and being someone who primarily focuses, all we do is body surgery. Most of my procedures are mommy makeovers, which is a very, you take 5,000 operations that I'm trained in, I basically do one. It's easy to stand out in the crowd when you have that one thing you do as well as anyone on the planet, and you build an infrastructure around it. So being in a city with the density, it allows that one thing to stand out even higher. It allows you to be the taller flower, in the garden. And what also is great about New York is that it's an international city, but 30% or a third of my patients that I operate on are from Europe and the Middle East. So we're like an epicenter. And by the way, if you're not driven to be a better version of yourself personally and professionally by competition, this isn't the place for you.
and you mentioned the phrase mommy makeover. We hear this a lot. It's a big, they use it on talk shows all the time. How would you describe what a mommy makeover is?
So, why I love this procedure? Because there's such a low psychological burden to do it. Because we are reversing the structural changes from pregnancy. Muscles are torn and stretched, skin is torn and stretched, fat is deposited in these torn and stretched areas, and you take these young, healthy, vibrant women or of any age, and, their body looks from time to time, like someone threw a grenade at it. And there's no match between the mind and body connection. And most of them have never had cosmetic surgery before. And they simply want to undo the changes from pregnancy. They love their kids, but they want to love their body again and feel the way they did before. And so typically we're doing some type of liposculpting where we're melting fat and tightening skin. We're typically doing some type of skin removal like a tummy tuck. And maybe reinflating the breasts after breastfeeding with an implant or fat. So we're typically treating, the core, the muscle, the skin, the fat, and the breasts in any number of custom combination in a mommy makeover. Now, you see these young moms come in, or any mom come in of any age. I always look at them in the follow-up. I look at their face, not their body. Because, when you see that they got a swagger and they got, a little bit of groove in their step back, you've made a difference in someone's life. And you did that with 20 years of school, a big team, a big commitment, and surgical precision, and you feel good about it because you made an impact.
And you say that's your number one item on the menu. How many of those are you doing on an average year?
We do about 700 in my office.
And you have a partner, right? You're not doing all 700 yourself, right?
I have an associate. Yeah, Dr. Funderburg. He is an amazing surgeon. He works with me. We have 2 big, beautiful operating rooms. And we like to operate. I mean, we're surgeons.
It sounds exhausting, though, doing 700 and doing multiple times a day. How do you muscle through that?
So I'm a big believer in rituals and routine. I mean, my wife will make fun of me, but I go to bed early at 9. I don't drink any alcohol. And, I get up at 4:15, 4:20 in the morning every day. I read Stoic philosophy for about 20, 30 minutes to get my mind kind of concentrated and focused. Then I hit the gym with my trainer. And then, by the time I get to work at about 6:30, I'm ready to go. Just like a professional athlete who conditions himself off the field, I preach we got to do the same. We have a physically demanding job where it's not just physically demanding, you need to have the mental inertia and horsepower to be able to do it. But, I got energy to burn.
And you're not just a pretty face. Didn't you write a textbook about liposuction too?
Yeah, we've written a couple of the textbook chapters and some of the big plastic surgery textbooks on advanced techniques and safety. And I'm actually giving a master class at the American Society of Aesthetic Plastic Surgery on this topic next week in San Diego.
Cool. And, we started this conversation talking about the fact that many doctors have to become entrepreneurs. And that's just a skill set they have to hone along the way. Some are born with it, some are not. But you are also literally an entrepreneur by getting involved in things outside of medicine, crypto, biotech, and such. Why more than what you're doing? Because it sounds like you're busy enough. What interests you in these other fields?
It is simple. You're going to be a product of the people you spend time with. So by investing early round, mid stage, late round in whether it's, a startup or something that's already going, I get access to spend time with some of the most interesting, sophisticated people on the planet from all realms. And I can learn from someone, I want to spend time with someone creating, a crypto credit card. I want to hear, their brainwaves. I want to hear what they think about things. And I can take that, learn from it, and apply it to what I do. Whether it's in the spirits business, whether it's crypto, whether it's biotech, I just keep expanding my network of amazing people that I can learn from. And that is the essential aspect of it. It just gives me face to face with some of the most interesting and exciting people in the world.
Does your wife Lauren ever say, Ryan, just chill? I mean, can you just not move for a second? Because it sounds like you are constantly moving.
Correct. She always jokes like the song that represents me is that old Alabama song, I'm in a hurry.
Yeah. And why is that? Is that just your DNA?
Things in motion stay in motion, and I'm in motion. I really love living life every day, and she laughs at me like I bounce out of bed at 4:15. Like I'm ready to go, and I'm excited about what the day is going to bring.
In terms of some of those verticals we talked about, are there any you're super passionate about right now? I just interviewed someone involved in the NFT space. Is that something you're interested in? What kind of things are kind of like perking your interest these days?
A lot of the things that I really find super interesting is in the food space. Like the future of food is something like I really like investing in.
Well, and ingesting it eventually, yeah.
Correct. I do think that, consumer products, I know everyone wants to invest in SaaS companies, fintech, and crypto and NFT. I like consumer products. Last time I checked, everyone needs to eat food. Last time I checked, everyone likes to eat food. But I do think that the way to move, caloric consumption around the world is going to be in, healthier, more innovative strategies. And I like to invest a lot in those kind of companies that are that are either working on global food supply chain or how to do innovative plant-based food or transforming, high caloric value food where there wasn't anymore. And I do think that's going to have a major impact on the planet. And one of them specifically that I really like is called Daring Foods. Daring Foods is like a plant-based chicken that tastes better than chicken, and it is something super healthy. Americans eat 10 times more chicken than beef, and this is, a very, it's 100% plant-based, it's high protein, low calorie, non-GMO, and this is an exciting way, for me to help. My practice is focused on wellness, and this allows me to extend that reach.
And you talked about earlier about you want your team to be healthy, happy, and, obviously what you're doing is making people happier. Talk to me about happiness. It seems like that's a big driver in your life.
Yeah, because I do think that happiness is really about the ability, to help others, to serve others. What kind of impact can you make every day on other people? And I think that is such a better way to focus yourself as opposed to how much money I can make, or what can I accumulate in terms of, goods and services. If you focus on what can I do for others and how can I make, I don't want it to sound too corny, what can I do today for others? What can I do to make the world a better place? It's a lot easier to be happy than it is if you have goals that are material things.
And you also love to give back. I know you're very involved in the New York charity scene. Again, I don't know how you have time for any of this, but you've worked a lot with animals. You've done some Soul Cycle stuff. You also did God's Love We Deliver. How do you know which charity you want to be involved with?
Simple. So when we did some employee feedback surveys, people want more than just a place where they show up to work. People want to feel like they belong to something, and they want to feel like they matter. And one of the things that came up in the survey is they want to spend more time connecting to the community. So we decided every quarter we're going to spend considerable time, energy, and effort making a community initiative. New York City has been so nice to us and so giving to us, we're going to give that right back. So our office makes a pick once a quarter. Someone usually just puts their hand up at one of our team meetings and says, this is something that means something to me, and I'd like everyone to put their all into it. And we make a big difference. We raised over $20,000 at our SoulCycle charity ride for the Release Recovery Foundation. That is something that took people with substance abuse and mental illness living, within a few blocks of where we work and gave them hope. And that puts more texture to the workplace for my staff and makes the team much stronger. So I think there's no better team building initiative than a community charity. Honestly, you think that the last thing these guys want to do after working all day is to go, volunteer at a kitchen making food for sick people or go to an animal shelter. But you know what? They want to go because they want to be part of something. People want to be part of something. It matters.
It sounds like you built yourself a pretty good culture there, and I'm assuming it was pretty intentional.
Yeah, listen, it's never easy, but it's very important. Culture is everything, and from when you walk in to when you walk out, I want you to see from the surgeon to the front desk to the nurses to our full-time cleaner that everyone is on the same wavelength, everyone has the same moral compass, and everyone is here committed to our patients' experience and happiness. This is something that, thinking about 24/7, we're fully committed to, and we're constantly pivoting to. These change, as the world changes, the things that our staff need and want change.
And, we've been talking about, being a doctor/entrepreneur, and also as being part of a doctor, you're a boss. So you've got to manage people and you've got to hire and fire. I don't even know if that was probably the hardest thing, but of everything you've done in terms of, outside of the actual surgery, what to you is the hardest part of running your own practice with a large team and doing 700 surgeries a year? Is there one thing that you're like, man, Joe, that's the one thing that's really hard for me to handle?
Well, I mean, it's not necessarily hard, but it's an obstacle. You want to make sure everyone on your team is feeling, love for and feeling that they matter and that their potential is being unleashed. And it becomes difficult to give that one-on-one time to constantly reevaluate, recalibrate, and change people's roles. So, the only way to do that is, to build a team of people that can do that for you to some extent. So, your senior people need to be able to do that for you. But the hardest part is constantly analyzing people's motivations and keeping their goals in sight. That's the hardest part.
Yeah, because I was going to say, because it's hard for you to think about what, Gladys is thinking in the reception desk while you're doing, you're digging your hands in someone's body.
100%. But guess what? The front desk, someone working at the front desk may have a game-changing idea because of what he or she or they see every day. So if nobody's asking, they may not feel comfortable talking about it. So we need to reduce those silos of communication, make it a more even plane of communication, and we need to hear what people have to say. Besides team meetings, the biggest thing is I tried to create an environment where we don't have silos of communication. I want people, if they see something, say something.
I mean, I never thought about it, but I guess it's silly that I didn't. A doctor's office sounds like a company, even though it's hard for me to like, I think most people will be like, okay, it's doctors and nurses and people, but it's really a company that you've built there, right?
Yeah, listen, we have over 30 full-time people. I mean, I have a full-time, we have someone who used to be a recovery coach, and we call him our full-time hype man. He's also our surgical supplies coordinator. We have a full warehouse of surgical supplies, but we basically we have a full-time hype man just to keep everyone going around. This is an organization, and it's a living, breathing thing. I do try to reduce the hierarchical structure from the traditional sense and make it more lateral than vertical. That has made a big difference because we have a lot of really smart, educated, ambitious, curious people. Because remember, they're in New York City too. They could have chose to live in anywhere else. If they chose to be here, they chose to be here for a reason. So it's great. A lot of the things we do is not, everyone thinks it's all my ideas, but it's not.
And, one more thing about your team. A lot has been said and written about the Great Resignation over the past, 6 or 7 months here in the States.
Yeah.
What has the war on talent been like for you and keeping people happy and employed?
We get over 100 resumes a month. People want to work here. So here's my take on that. And it goes into even all the companies I'm invested in. And when we talk about employment, I do not believe people don't want to work. I do believe people do not want to work for bad bosses and people don't want to work in bad environments. Nothing provides more people with a better sense of self than a fulfilling job. So be a better boss, create a better environment. How do we do that? Well, one of the things that we did early on in the pandemic, or as we're still dealing with it, is create more custom comp models in the sense that it's not just like, here's the nursing job, it's this time to this time, and here's the pay. It's, okay, tell me about your life. And okay, you have 3 kids, you live in Staten Island, you want to work 6 a.m. to 3 p.m. 3 days a week. You're amazing. Great, we'll figure that out. It's like we take the characters and the people and we just figure it out. Like we just have, everyone has custom comp models and we make it work for their life. If you don't want to work 5 days a week, that's great. We don't say see you later. We say, well, we want you for as much as you will work and we'll just fill in the gaps.
I think it is harder for those older bosses, who were built, on the Henry Ford 40-hour, 5-day-a-week schedule that was developed, hundreds of years ago. And now you're seeing, especially like in the service industry, you cannot walk past any kind of, I guess, service and retail. You can't walk past a storefront or a restaurant without a help wanted sign. I like to joke that you're better off putting a sign up that says work not wanted because it's just so common. So what do you do about those kind of jobs? The jobs where you have to, that you need to fill these positions, but outside of you building a good culture, like if people don't want to have that, if people don't want that job, what can you do about it?
Make the job attractive. I don't believe that there's a job that someone doesn't want to do and that someone can't feel fulfilled. And you just need to figure out a way to do that. Honestly, we don't have it in my office. From our cleaning staff up, we make it so that they seem fulfilled. Make people feel important. Like our cleaning staff have very fancy uniforms. Like they feel like they're showing up to a professional office. They love the way they feel and look in their fancy uniforms. And they're we tell them every day, we can't operate unless we have a clean OR. They're just as important as everyone else. Remind people how important they are. And I just believe that that's just nonsense. And that's just a complete leadership fail.
I feel like I need to update my resume and send it off to you because do you need an unemployable radio guy who dropped out of college? Do you have any positions for me there? Because it sounds like the place is too good to be true.
Outside of the medical roles, obviously if you want to be an anesthesiologist, you have to be an anesthesiologist. But for all the other roles in my office, I really couldn't care less about your resume before. It's I want the character. I want to know your drive. I want to know who you are, what you want to be. And we have people from such a diverse background. And I'm not so concerned about your college degree and things like that. That stuff doesn't really matter.
Yeah, it's funny that you said that. I've spoken to many people in the HR space who for many, many years, HR and recruiting, for many, many years, they disdained the word transferable skills. They thought you can only hire this person for this job if they had a applicable job, whether it's tangential to that job beforehand. Now you're seeing the shift. Obviously, you've got that over there in Neinstein plastic surgery, that it's more about skills as opposed to experience.
Will and skill. Do you want to be a somebody? Do you want to be part of something that's growing? Yes? Yes? You want to work hard? Yes. Great. You're hired. We'll figure it out. But the real key is recalibrating. We hire people in one role, and then we're like, you know what? This person's really great at doing that. Let's just pivot. Because, why not get the best version of them?
Did you ever go to any business classes or business school? How do you know about all this stuff? I
listen from my mentor. I read the books. I go to the meetings from the companies I invest in. And then I take these things and I try it. And when it works, it's great. When it doesn't work, I go back and ask people for advice. You don't have to walk through the world without a candle. You don't find people, ask for their advice, make the best decision, try it. If it works, great. If it doesn't, try something else. It's really not that hard.
His name is Dr. Ryan Neinstein. He is the founder of Neinstein Plastic Surgery. Doc, thank you so much for the time. It was a lot of fun. And when I'm due for some possible, I won't need the mommy makeover, maybe a Botox or a treatment or two. I'll hit you up the next time I'm in town, okay?
Anytime. Door's always open.
All right, Ryan, take care.
I loved it. Thank you so much. You got it.
You are welcome. And that is it for this episode of the Forbes Books Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, make sure you take a second to subscribe so you automatically get new shows when they drop. Also, if you have a minute, I would love if you left us a review so more amazing entrepreneurs like yourself can discover the show. And please don't forget the golden rule and treat others as you want to be treated. Thanks for listening. Until next time, adios.